Welcome. I'm Susanna, psychic medium and author of Living Beyond Death. In Season 2, Episode 32 of Metaphysical Hippie Chicks 2.0, The Rise of Spiritual Conspiracies, I felt that our conversation about frequency didn't go as deep or feel as complete as it could have. I also believe that our discussion about the people and situations we attract through patterns shaped by childhood trauma and the survival strategies we developed deserved more time and attention. Today's episode is an opportunity to revisit those topics with greater depth and to explore several other spiritual concepts that often generate questions and debate. As always, the opinions and beliefs I share are my own and may not resonate with everyone. My intention is to simply encourage thoughtful exploration, curiosity, and personal discernment. Have you ever wondered how one tiny moment can completely change the direction of your life? The butterfly effect is the idea that something incredibly small can eventually lead to something much bigger, sometimes in ways we could never have predicted. It comes from something called chaos theory in mathematics, which is the study of complex systems and how they behave. You may have heard the famous example of a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil and somehow causing a tornado in Texas. That idea came from meteorologist Edward Lorenz. Now, he wasn't saying that a butterfly literally creates a tornado. His point was that in very complex systems like our weather, even the tiniest change at the beginning can completely alter what happens later. When you stop and think about it, it happens in our own lives too. How many of us have met someone by complete chance, only to discover that person changed the course of our lives? Maybe it was a conversation you almost didn't have, a job you almost didn't apply for, or a decision that seemed insignificant at the time but ended up opening a door you never expected. One thing I think is important to point out is that people sometimes misunderstand the butterfly effect by confusing it with the idea that everything happens for a reason. That's actually not what it means. It simply means that in complex systems, small changes can sometimes create enormous consequences. Not every little action we take leads to something monumental, but some do. And because there are so many moving parts in life, it's almost impossible to predict which ones will. And I think we can find something meaningful about that too. Whether you look at it through the lens of science, spirituality, religion, or just everyday life, the butterfly effect reminds us that our actions matter. Whether it's a kind word to a stranger, a compliment, a simple act of compassion, or an uplifting conversation that lasts only a few minutes. We may never know how far those moments travel or whose life they eventually touch. Maybe that's the real message. Not to underestimate the power of small beginnings, but to understand that the smallest choices, the quietest moments, and even the simplest acts of kindness can create ripples that extend far beyond anything we can see. So, in your own life, you may find yourself in moments or situations where you're not ready to see something, accept something, change something, or you're not ready for some type of knowledge. Whatever the case, you're not going to be in a space of acceptance and allowance. It's no accident that you found this episode. Maybe today you'll hear something that resonates with you, offers a new perspective, or promotes an aha moment, something you weren't quite ready to receive until now. I believe that all of us, including animals, come into this life with a blueprint or design for our journey. That blueprint includes agreements we've made with ourselves, with other people, with animals, and with certain situations we will encounter. These agreements create the opportunities through which we experience life in this physical reality, and it's how we learn to use our energy, consciously, subconsciously, and unconsciously. For decades, since the 70s in fact, A never-ending message about frequency and vibration has been rippling through New Age platforms. But have you ever stopped to think about the difference between the two? Scientifically, a vibration is the actual movement or oscillation of something moving back and forth. Frequency is how often that vibration occurs over time, measured in hertz, or cycles per second. Think of a guitar string. The vibration is the string moving back and forth. The frequency is how many times it moves back and forth each second. A guitar string vibrating 440 times per second has a frequency of 440 hertz, which corresponds to the musical note A. So, there cannot be a frequency without a vibration or some other repeating cycle. But simply, vibration is the motion while frequency is the rate of that motion. In New Age spirituality, however, these terms are often used very differently. People commonly speak of raising your vibration or operating at a higher frequency, but in science, these words have very specific definitions. In spiritual circles, they're generally used more symbolically to describe a person's state of consciousness, emotional well-being, or perceived energetic state. So while the vibration and frequency are related concepts, they are not technically the same thing. And when applied to spirituality, the idea of higher or lower vibrations and frequencies remains a matter of personal belief rather than something that has been scientifically demonstrated. I have often heard people say that joy is the highest vibration. Beginning in the late 20th century, it became popular among spiritual teachers and consciousness researchers to assign numerical levels of consciousness to emotions such as love, joy, fear, anger, and shame. That, my friends, raises a huge red flag for me. I don't believe there are levels of consciousness because consciousness simply is. Everything exists within, of, and as consciousness. Likewise, I don't believe there are higher or lower emotions or good and bad emotions because emotions simply are. We are the ones who assign meaning to emotions and give them power through the energetic charge we invest in them. Feeling grief, fear, sadness, or anger is not a mistake. These emotions are not signs that you are operating at a lower vibration. They are normal human responses, and each emotion carries important information about our state of being in that moment. Rather than judging our emotions, perhaps our role is to understand them, learn from them, and allow them to move through us. Ironically, genuine joy often arises not because we've avoided difficult emotions, but because we've acknowledged and processed them with honesty and compassion. My caution with the phrase, joy is the highest vibration, is that it can inadvertently lead to spiritual bypassing and possibly toxic positivity in a way that leads to the suppression of normal and natural human emotions. What about the feelings of peace, contentment, love, gratitude? Again, I believe that all emotions are a state of being. Living in your truth can absolutely bring you joy. It can also stir feelings of self-love, self-respect, meaning, and purpose. Sometimes joy is found in the smaller things in life, like listening to a newborn breathe while sleeping on your chest, watching a bird feed its hatchlings, or hearing the sound of a train traveling in the distance before dawn. But what does spiritual truth actually mean? When you are living your life with integrity and taking responsibility for what you create, and that includes taking responsibility for your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and actions, you are living in alignment. Because we have free will, you always have a choice. You can see yourself as a victim of your circumstances, or you can choose to respond to those circumstances from a place of personal responsibility and empowerment. When you remain focused on blame and point the finger elsewhere, which is a deeply human tendency and something all of us do from time to time, you can become trapped in a victim mindset. The problem with staying there is that it greatly depletes your sense of personal power and your ability to create meaningful change. When you can recognize when you are giving your power away to someone or to a situation, you are expanding your self-awareness and your emotional intelligence. If you accept the idea that you come into this life with a soul blueprint or life design, then you have also agreed to certain experiences that support your soul's growth. From this perspective, those experiences are opportunities to deepen your understanding of yourself, your emotions, and your life so you can expand your awareness, which cultivates greater self-love and self-acceptance. Now, believing that people design their lives before birth does not preclude love and compassion for those experiencing poverty, addiction, discrimination, serious illness, abuse, or other circumstances that may be beyond their control. Believing in a soul blueprint or design should never be used to minimize another person's suffering or to excuse a lack of empathy. Victim blaming is an arrogant and dismissive response to another person's struggles. As you develop greater self-esteem, self-love, self-worth, and self-acceptance, and deepen your understanding of human behavior, you are better equipped to recognize those who would take advantage of you and to establish healthier boundaries. So in closing, I believe it would be very fitting to briefly talk about death. There is a Sanskrit proverb, "No one dies before his time, even though pierced by hundreds of arrows. Touched merely by a blade of grass, he lives not, whose time has come." I, too, believe that no one dies before their time. A soul departs only after completing what it came here to experience. Those of us left behind are the ones who suffer because a loved one or a beloved pet is no longer physically with us. A part of our identity and our daily life suddenly is missing. Grief is profound. It is patient, and it waits for you. It arrives in its own time and asks to be felt. For me personally, in the case of one death, it waited 56 years. One of the questions I'm asked most often is, do they miss me? My belief is no, not in the way we think of missing someone. I believe they are still with us, continuing to love us just as deeply as we love them. We are the ones experiencing the pain of separation and the ache of loss. We often say, they died before their time, they had their whole life ahead of them, or they never would have chosen it this way. These are natural responses born from grief and love. But I believe our loved ones are not suffering. Rather, they continue their journey in a state of peace while we learn to carry our love for them in a new way. Thank you for being here today. If you know someone who may resonate with today's episode, please share it with them. Metaphysical Hippie Chicks 2.0 can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and many other podcast platforms. I invite you to join me, Annalisa, and Terry every Tuesday for a new episode. I love you, I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.